Folks, you are tuned into the Rebel's Edge, and we have yet another bang, which of course means that we nailed one of the stocks ahead of the big move. Find out right now.
That's it, baby. That is it. We are rocking and rolling. John, I'll tell you what, we've had more fun over the last week or so with unusual options. It's been absolutely incredible. And a lot of sports news that's been a lot of fun. All the arguments about Florida State and were they snubbed or were they not and all this. And then you go to the NFL. I mean, we got a lot of stuff going on right now. It's fun.
Oh, yeah. And for all the folks out there that don't understand hey, you get unusual every day for a host of reasons. Could be insider trading. We never know for sure. Right. Could be a congressperson decides to make a few shekels. It could just be that there are a bunch of people noticing something in a technical pattern or whatever. As long as they're buying in big numbers, we follow it, we post it, and then some of you, lucky traders and investors, follow along with us and jump right on the same bandwagon. All right, Pete, let's get started with the macro minute. And I'm going to say it's the ADP payroll number, which basically increased, which is positive, but it only increased by 103,000. That was well below expectations. But so some might say, well, that's bad. But of course, you and I know that what's bad for employment is good because it means Jay Powell and the Fed are doing what they're supposed to do.
Yep. And you take a look over at the CME tool and you can find out right away. What are the odds that they're going to do this? They're going to pause. What is it, John? 99.8% or something like that right now?
Yeah. It would take an act of God, Pete, to not be in a pause mode because that's what it is right now.
Well, my quick macro minute is this, John. Goldman Sachs is doing something that's very interesting, and I don't know how many people are even aware of it, but they are attacking where things really are, and they're going after the small cap stocks, and they're creating multiple new ETFs within that world or whatever. I think it's pretty interesting. We'll see how that goes, but it's already started, and we'll see, over the next year. I think you can't use just a few days or a couple weeks or whatever, but it is interesting, and I think from a macro perspective, people outside of us oftentimes do want to have something that might be an ETF, something that's not as specific as a specific name. This is going to be a very, very interesting road that I think Goldman Sachs is taking on right now, and they're taking advantage of something that's been pretty hot. They want to be a part of it.
Well, pretty hot and then pretty not, because those small caps, wow, they've been decimated, most of them. Now, hopefully the way Goldman is selecting them, it'll be a different group and less than that 2,000 stock IWM. Yeah. All right, Pete, let's talk about fantastic futures. I didn't know if we should.
Fantastic futures.
Wow. I didn't know if the fantastic futures would be basically, Pete, crude oil trading down to 70. Or that straight line from upper left to lower right at a 45-degree angle, it seems, for the 10-year. But it's down to 410 today.
It's really, John, unbelievable. And I think you're right to go both of those. It really is. You take a look at crude. I was wrong because I thought crude, when it got up towards 80, I thought, you know what, here we go. We're going to start getting closer and closer. Maybe we get to 100. That did not happen. It's been fighting around. It's been somewhere between 75 and call it 80, 81 maybe. But now we're in the very low 70 area. So it's getting pretty interesting. I'm shocked by that one for sure. And I'll tell you what, to your point, the 10-year, it was 5%. Folks, if you think that this is normal to watch this thing move the way it is, the 10-year treasury, it isn't, because this has been an absolute unbelievable drop from plus 5% to what John was just talking about, 4.10. Really? I remember you don't have to go too far back, John, when 4% was a level that we were all staring at. And then we started looking at 5%, and here we are again, looking down at 4%. Very, very close.
Yeah, it is something that you need to pay attention to, folks. And by the way, mortgage applications flooding in as people that missed the boat and or people that just have bought a home in the last few months, Pete, and decided, you know what, I wasn't going to pay over 8, and now I might be paying under 7 as far as the rates and things like that. Those were shrewd people, Pete. All right, let's talk about SentinelOne. Why? Well, it spiked higher in extended trade last night, a breakout for this cybersecurity firm, Pete, 41% revenue growth. And you know what, folks? This is the one that had that unusual activity. Take a look. I mean, here is that unusual activity. Only 24 hours later. This isn't one that we had, back in September and you had to hold it for months and months, or in October, or even November. This just hit yesterday. Look at that, December 5th. And now you see that the stock pops by better than 18%. This is manna from heaven, Pete, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. You got to love it. But it is believable because it's happened more and more and more. We are seeing UOA just taking off, John. It's been incredible. And the category where most folks have been really making the biggest amounts recently, at least, have been in the shorts. If you have a short interest that's high, those names are the ones that folks are coming after, whether it's something like a Robinhood or take your pick. You're going to find these names, and those are a lot of the names that we've been seeing of late. I think Sentinel, this was about the fact that they crushed it. They hit 52-week highs. They did everything right, everything you'd ever expect somebody to do. And they got a pristine balance sheet. And you forecasted above what the estimates were. When you do that, people definitely are going to watch and say, you know what? I'm going to own this thing. And they start buying it. You get that kind of pop that you're seeing right now. That's where that UOA really stands out in front of a catalyst like this. This is a great one today.
And remember, folks, if you want just one trade a week, we have a service for that, 2 trades a week. If you want multiple trades per day, we have services like that. That's what we do at Market Rebellion. We see that unusual activity through the co-located servers that are in the data centers of the U.S. exchanges. And then our editors post that to a password-secured website, and you can follow along just like us. It's the only way, really, that I trade 99 times out of 100, Pete. This is the way I trade. I know you're pretty close to the same. And go to marketrebellion.com/get started to see about learning more about options or to subscribe to any of these services. marketrebellion.com/get started. All right, let's take a look at Asana, Pete. ASAN, down hard. 18% year-over-year revenue increase. Well, that's good. You just heard Pete say it. Well, then you've got the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, which is non-GAAP operating losses. They were reduced. That's good news. But people are worried now, Pete, that even though they're doing some of these things right, there is still a little something out there that people don't like to see.
I'll tell you one of the things I don't like to see, John. When is this company going to make money? You've heard me say it a million times in the past. I haven't said it as much recently because of what we've seen through earnings season and everything else, and it's been okay. At least they have some form of it. These guys have got to show us something. They've got to show us that they've matured enough that they can make money, they can do this, they can do that. And that's not something we are seeing. Stock down about 15%. There is a high short interest. In this case, John, those shorts are not getting squeezed. Those shorts have been right, and this stock has been moving in that direction. So it's something that I think we'll keep an eye on. There is no reason right now, in my opinion, that you'd say, you know what, after this hit, I think I'm going to buy some of this. They've got to show us something. They've got to show us they can figure out how to make money. And if they can do that sometime in the future, this will be something I think we can revisit. They did a lot of things right, but you got to make money at some point, right?
Yeah, Pete. But enough about Asana. Let's talk about Box, because this one's down hard. And it's another one where we've got revenue up. It was up 5% year over year, about 262 million, Pete. But then you get to some of the bad news over at Box. And this is content cloud market. That's what they are, a leader in that space. But people are a little worried that maybe things aren't as bright as that if revenue increasing 5% year over year might sound.
Well, I think part of the problem, John, is they're slowing down. They're slowing down in a lot of different categories. Their forecast was weak on the sales. So those are the things that people are waiting to hear, right? They want to know, what does the future look like? And they're getting that. Not as great as maybe expected. So the one thing that really did stand out, though, John, that I tell you what, at some point, maybe this name is worth a look. And I just talked about some of the other names where I wouldn't touch them for a long time. This one, I might be a little bit closer. And the reason I say that is free cash flow. How about that? Quarter over quarter, up 184%. I mean, that's a big number. So they're doing some things right. Yes, they're seeing some slowdowns, but if they can accelerate things, John, to any kind of a degree, stock near the 52-week lows, I think I'm getting closer and closer to being a buyer of Box.
Yeah, I'd pull the trigger on it, like you say, Pete, down here around these 52-week lows. Not growing fast, yeah, you're going to be penalized for that. But like you say, free cash flow, that falls into that other category that we don't talk about enough, which is you got to make money, and free cash flow, well, that sounds pretty good. All right, let's talk about InMD, Pete, INMD, InMode. This is basically innovative medical technologies. And what did they do? Well, they're trading down. They were down 14%. Now they've cut that a little. They're down 10% at mid-session. And I think the issue here is, Pete, that the CEO talked about stronger than expected headwinds in the current macroeconomic environment. To me, that's one of the many firms that's out there saying, hey, it's not just consumers that are slowing down. It's businesses that we reach out to. It is people looking for these medical innovations that InMode provides and saying, we like what you do. We can't afford it right now. We're going to put that purchase off.
Yeah, John, I'll tell you what, I'll make this one short and sweet. They have a huge short interest. The stock is now scratching near the 52-week lows. And anytime you have a revision to the downside, as opposed to you get a revision to the upside, you're going to get a pop. You get a revision to the downside, they're going to smack you right in the teeth, because they're going to start wondering, well, wait a minute, what changed? And we know what changed. But that being said, John, they don't know enough about it. And the fact that you are revising it lower, that's basically giving you the outlook once again, right? And that outlook doesn't look as strong as everybody was expecting. So because of that, stock's taking a beating, and it's understandable why. Now, it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to stay down here, but for right now anyway, there's a little bit of pressure on the stock. This is one of those where you're kind of in that limbo. You're gonna maybe stay away from this one. I don't think that until you get another quarter's worth of earnings and feel more comfortable, this is not one of those names that I would want to be jumping into.
Yeah, well, and that's well said, Pete. People need to be aware that not every dip is there to be bought until things start to change, and this one needs to have a change going on. All right, what do you got as far as sports, Pete? Red Zone Sports.
Yeah, so Red Zone Sports. How about some bowl games, John? Well, there's 41 of them to pick from. So we're going to eliminate some of the really biggies, because the really biggies, the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, those are the biggies. They've been around a long time. They, millions and millions of dollars and everything else. And then you've got another 35 or so bowl games out there that some of them start very soon. And the earlier in December you start, the lower that grade of bowl game is. But, there's a lot of toilet bowls out there and everything else. I'll tell you what, my challenge for the two of us is, what bowl game do you kind of actually say, it's not one of the biggest, it's not a New Year's Day and all the rest of it, but you just kind of think it might be worthwhile. I'm going to say the Independence Bowl for two reasons. One, it's the only bowl I ever had the opportunity to play in. And it was great. The people of Shreveport, Louisiana were the nicest people in the world. We filled the stadium. It was ourselves, Minnesota, going up against Clemson. It was great. This year, ties right back to us, John. The Cal Golden Bears are playing against Texas Tech. So you've got Cal Berkeley, back in our days of living in California, and Dad playing there, and you playing there, and Paul playing there, and Uncle George playing there. We got a lot of ties to this one. That, I think, is a fun bowl. I really do. I think that if you're looking for a great bowl, just a great game, I'm looking also, John, at the Chick-fil-A Bowl. And I know it sounds a little bit jokey, Chick-fil-A, hey, what are you doing? It's in Atlanta. But let me tell you, Ole Miss against Penn State. Now, that's a damn good matchup. You got SEC, Big Ten. Penn State gets the opportunity to show maybe they're better than being number 3, number 4, number 5 in the Big Ten, wherever they ended up. But you know what? Against Ole Miss, I think that's a damn good game that I think everybody should watch.
Well, I'll tell you another one I think they should watch, and that is the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. You'll notice, folks, that a lot of these games, just like Pete said about Chick-fil-A, they put the sponsor name ahead of the bowl. And I've got a surprise one of those for you. But the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, that's Tulane versus USC. That is a rematch, Pete, because Tulane had a fabulous year last year, I think about the same as this year, where they go like 12-1. And nobody gave them a shot. I think they were at least a 2-touchdown dog to USC, and they beat them. Well, this is a rematch, so we'll see what USC's got. We know they can score, Pete. Caleb Williams better put up some numbers here.
I'll bet he doesn't play.
Well,
right?
Well, and you might be right. You might be right. That's a January 2nd bowl, by the way, folks. So we've got a little time to find out, but Pete's probably right. He pays attention to that more than I do. This is the stupidest name, unless you really look at what it does, and that is the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl.
The Jimmy Kimmel Bowl. I can't wait.
The Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. So apparently, Pete, they cut a deal with the Kimmel folks. I don't know if Jimmy sees the money or if there is any money, or if it's just, you know what, because like, for instance, Chick-fil-A, they pay a fortune to have their name on that bowl. Goodyear, they paid a fortune to have their name on that bowl. I don't know if Jimmy Kimmel or his staff paid anything, but I think they might do it in kind, Pete, meaning that it's a trade out. So we have our name and our show mentioned every time somebody talks about this bowl, which is against these two juggernauts, Fresno State and Washington State. And I do know, Pete, that they're good football at both schools, but they're hardly something that nobody's going to say, oh yeah, those fans travel well, you know, like Notre Dame or Michigan or Ohio State or Nebraska. No, this is not that. And by the way, folks, when Pete played in the Independence Bowl, they beat a very good Clemson team. So right now, Pete's 1-0 in bowl games. Actually, that's wrong. You're 2-0 because you won the World League.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. You remembered it and I didn't. It shows you what happens to this noggin from football. I completely forgot about that one. And that was one of the most fun games ever. And we were up in Canada. And let me tell you, anybody if you're looking for the best city in North America, it's Montreal. Sorry, it's not in the U.S. It's Montreal. It's unbelievable. It is. And for single guys, it's not such a bad thing. Anyway, next on, John, we're going to go to the NBA. Now, the NBA is actually, they're staying where they were last year, 1.5 million viewers, TV viewers. The NFL, they're at 15 million viewers. But, we're not going to do that big comparison. Here's what I wanted to tell you. Do you know who the number one team in the NBA is right now as we stand? It is the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves are 15-4. They have a better record than Boston, who's the next team. And head-to-head, they beat Boston. So it shows you a little something about what's going on in the NBA, and it's not just the same old, same old. Golden State, not really there. The Lakers, they're somewhere in the hunt somewhere, but not really there. They're not sitting near the top. So a lot of the old dogs are not there, but we've got all these new ones. I'll tell you what, John, when you look at the Timberwolves and you see that they're a really fun team, Rudy Gobert, Big Cat, you've got Anthony Edwards, you've got a bunch of other guys. There's a guy named Naz Reid. People don't really know much about him. Big kid out of LSU. The other day, and he does not go to load management, by the way, Anthony Edwards. Thank God. He's not one of those people. Oh, by the way, even though they tanked last year, and the load management king, that clown who coaches the team down there in San Antonio, do you know what their record is, John? I think they've lost 14 in a row. Even though he's got an 8-foot giant playing for him, who everybody loved, they can't win a game. So you know what? It's kind of coming back to that clown. But I did want to read this to you. How about this? In the NBA, here is the rules for what these guys do for load management, John. You can only one star player is permitted to rest for one game. Star players must be available for national television in-season tournament games, and teams must balance this out between the number one game absence for a star player in home games and road games. I don't think this really changes anything for me. I don't know about you, John, but it still means that there's a possibility that, well, you came here, even though we're healthy, we're gonna rest this guy. And the reason I bring all this up and tie it in with the Minnesota team, Anthony Edwards has gotten up and stood straight up and told the world, this is a bunch of crap. People are coming to watch us play. They pay the money that puts it into our pockets, and we are letting them down when we don't do it. That guy understands the game. He understands business, just like Michael Jordan did, just like Kobe Bryant did. But there's a whole bunch of clowns out there who think it's just perfectly fine, LeBron James, who just decide to sit out. I mean, what kind of crap is this, John? And then what I just read to you, that was the commissioner's answer. That's his answer to load management. What do you think? Has he answered all the questions, do you think?
No. And Pete, you've been on this for several years. And for the year and a half that this show has been on the air, when we've talked about it, we've basically called out the NBA commissioner as being the problem. Because LeBron might want to sit out. Okay, take that check away. Yeah. Say you want to sit out, you're losing your check for that game. For a guy like LeBron, that's a lot of money. I think also, Pete, in the Jordan era, the NBA was averaging 3 million viewers for those games. When he left, it fell to 2.1. When Kobe and the rest of these guys have left, and then David Stern is gone, and now we got this joker who's letting these guys do this instead of penalizing them and taking away draft picks if you do that and so forth. Instead of doing that, he's basically just catering to these, horrible
prima donnas.
Prima donnas that don't understand, and basically saying, you know what, if I let LeBron rest for 3 weeks, maybe he'll play better in the playoffs. What the? Anyway, so there's no wonder it's only $1.5 million, Pete. It's only going to keep going down. And it's a matter of time before hockey outdraws the NBA. Yeah, you heard me say it. Hockey will outdraw the NBA. It's more exciting, and those guys play every game.
It's getting closer too, John. I think hockey's about to almost overtake them, and I'm not joking. When you really look at what's going on with hockey, they've been on a nicer trajectory, and they're moving up while we're watching the NBA, as you just pointed out, from the Michael Jordan era, down, 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 Kobe Bryant, down, down, down. And I'm telling you, we all know why. It's an easy thing to answer because they know they're prima donnas, and these guys refuse to not just sit out games. And then you and I decide to buy tickets to a Bulls game against the Lakers, and LeBron doesn't show up, and neither does the center, neither does the guard, neither does this guy, that guy. I mean, it's a shame that they think that's okay still.
Yep, it is a misunderstanding of the public. And how much Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. I'm not sure which one said it, Pete, because those are separate people. But one of them said there's a sucker born every minute and 2 to take them. And that's the way the NBA is feeling and playing by not playing their players. All right. Pete and I will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time, folks. Make sure you go to the Rebels Edge on YouTube. And make sure you check out marketrebellion.com/get started to learn about trading options and to subscribe. Thank you.